Welcome back to another episode of Sal and Pals Go to the Movies. This is another Throwback Thursday review. I'm here with my friend Touly. Say hi, Touly.
Hello, everyone.
And for this review, we're going to be reviewing Commando from 1985. Just a fair warning, there's going to be spoilers up ahead, so you've been warned. A retired Special Force colonel tries to save his daughter who was abducted by his former subordinate. Well, this movie came out in 1985 and it has Arnold Schwarzenegger, so that's always a good hint of an action movie, especially from back in the 80s. I'm going to start off this review by going down my normal pros and cons. Pros, Arnold Schwarzenegger's in the movie. That's an action movie waiting to happen. Also, we have young Alyssa Milano, who plays Jenny, the daughter. That's another good thing. The plot in this story is that he only has 11 hours to either do what he has to do, which is kill a president, or his daughter dies, which means 11 hours, which translates into movie time, equals a really short movie. So that's what I liked about this movie. So this movie has a lot of good one-liners that I would say, or just memorable one-liners that they quoted, either in memoriam of another movie or tribute. For example, when he gets dropped off at the airport and he says, "I'll be back," that's a reference to The Terminator, which was released a year earlier. Now let's go to my cons. Too much of them showing the muscles of Arnold Schwarzenegger. It started off at the beginning where we see him carrying a big old tree and with a chainsaw in his other hand, and he's like just flexing his muscle. That's another excuse just to flex his muscle. I don't think it's on him. It's probably the director. Also, when he's in the mall and he rips telephone booth when Sully's inside trying to make a call and he's trying to prevent him from doing that, he just rips it off and throws it around like he's the Hulk. Also, we see him with all the security mall cops on top of him and he's just like breaking through them and just throwing them everywhere. There's one scene when they arrive at a warehouse. I guess there's a padlock and he just breaks it off. So that's another flexing his muscle scene. And then for the ladies, almost at the end, when they arrive to the island and he has no shirt on. As he's rowing, you see his pecs black. So I'm like, I guess that's like a little eye candy for women back then, who really liked Arnold. Now let's get into there was a lot of mistakes in the movie. I'm not going to basically go down all of them, but there is a lot. I'm just going to highlight a few. I don't know if this is a goof, but I'm going to put the audio right here. So let me know what you hear. In this scene, he's fighting the guys who kidnapped his daughter. Arnold's on the ground and he kicks one of the guys in the chest to throw him off. I hear him say eggs and I don't know why, but maybe that's just me. So I'm going to put the audio right here. Let me know what you think he says. Another is with Sully when they're leaving the mall with the car chase. Sully's in his yellow Porsche and Arnold's in the red car. They're chasing each other and they're bumping into each other. During the chase, in the red car, the bumper falls off in one scene and we see it dangling. Cut to the next scene, the bumper's attached again. Cut to the next scene, the bumper's hanging. So to me, those little things is like, who was in charge of editing, it really bugs me. And the thing that bugs me the most is at the end when it comes to a conclusion, Sully's Porsche is on his side because it tipped over. Arnold does what he has to do. He confronts him and everything. His car is totaled because he crashes into a pole. He goes and flips over the Porsche and we clearly see that it's skidded on one side, the driver's side. As they drive off, him and Sydney, the driver's side is intact. There is no scratch on it. Once they arrive at the hotel, which is their destination, the damage is back on their door. And I'm like, who was in charge of filming? Who was in charge of this scene? Wouldn't they have said, hey, sir, the car's on this side, wouldn't it be scratched? Just pointing it out there. But yeah. That's one of the scenes that really bugged me. And then at the end, when he goes to the island to save his daughter, we see him actually gearing up. And I don't know who to blame for this, but when we see him suiting up, we see him attach the grenades on his vest. They're actually tied with a string to the pull pin of the grenade. I don't think that's a smart move for Arnold to do, because if you know anything about grenades, you don't want them attached to the pull pin, because any little movement will detach them, and guess what happens? Kaboom. Whoever did this was rushing or something, they're not gonna notice. But I was just really dude, you have a really dangerous vest on, you're gonna blow yourself up, which a lot of people would say, that's too picky. But here's the other thing. When he had the machine gun, which was an M60, this uses a belt of, the bullets, they're in a chain, and it's called a belt. So as it's feeding it, he's shooting it, and it's basically feeding the bullets. So this chain, which is a belt, it's not that long, and you can see it scene to scene. It's feeding it. It's kind of long in one scene, it gets shorter in the other scene, but then it replenishes itself. If I was in the movie, I would have had Arnold carry extra belts on him around his chest, or, like just a commando style, but he has no ammo, and this ammo is a magical ammo that just keeps getting replenished. To me, it just seems like I'm really picky about stuff like that, and especially when I notice it, it's like, who was in charge of this editing? Also, they reverse one of the image because he's feeding the machine gun from the left, and in another scene they reflip it and it shows him feeding it from the right. So this is a technique they use. They flip the image, but you have to understand, if you're doing a film, be cautious about this. Make sure that it stays true, that you don't play with the image and later down the line someone will catch something like this, because it's easy. You think no one's going to catch it, but if they pay attention, it's like they'll call you on your BS kind of thing. With that, I'm going to pass it on to Touly and see what he thinks about this movie.
So this film, Commando, this was actually the first Arnold Schwarzenegger film that I've ever saw. And I didn't see this until the early 90s as a kid. This film came out the same year that I was born, 1985. Just because of that alone, it has some sentimental value. I guess my review might be a little more biased in that sense. But before I actually go on and rant about the pros, Sal already mentioned a lot of the cons of the film, and it's just the inconsistencies in like either the way things were shot or things that were left in the shot that should not have been there. So that's where most of my critique of the film would have been as well, and where I would dock points from the film. But with that being said, after having seen this film, it's been years since I watched it. Probably I haven't seen it since the 90s too. I think the last time I watched it. But having watched it now, I just treat it as, and I'm pretty sure a lot of people do too as well, this over-the-top action film where a father just go and rescues his daughter, or hunt down some bad guys to achieve something. We've seen this in other films too. Probably not as over the top. No, things like Rambo with Sylvester Stallone. I could even mention things like Bloodsport with Jean-Claude Van Damme. Like I said, they're not as over the top, but they still have their cheesiness. Yeah, there are those sort of films that sort of have that same vibe, where you could probably pick out mistakes in terms of like things being shot or things being left in the shot that wasn't consistent. Another way that you could look at this film too, which somebody pointed out that I was like, yeah, that's pretty good comparison, is the film Taken, which is I suppose the more contemporary take on like a film like Commando, where there's a father who trying to go and rescue his daughter. Of course, Taken, starring Liam Neeson, it is a more serious take, less comedy, less cheesiness in it, but it's a fair comparison, I would say. But because I looked at Commando as one of those over-top film, I gave it a little more leeway. Things that I found absurd, I would probably just laugh it off. For instance, when Matrix and Cindy, they went to the weapon shop to get all the gear together before going to rescue Matrix's daughter. My first thought was, where did they get that forklift, or how did he come to, activate that forklift? Like in one shot, it was showing them arriving at the weapons store, and then the next shot, you see Matrix on the forklift already operating. I was like, wait, was this the plan all along? He knew there was a forklift there, or how did he get access to that forklift? It was just like very absurd stuff. But like I said already, because I was already treating the film as one of those over-the-top action films, I was like, I could live with that. Like it could get away with that. And that was just like one example of like the mini stuff. Like Sal mentioned how the film seemed to maybe have an agenda to show off Arnold Schwarzenegger's his physique. The first shot of him, like Sal said, was him carrying this huge piece of log one side of his shoulder, and then on the other hand he was grasping onto a chainsaw. I was like, all right, they're trying to show how manly this guy is or whatever. But when and Sal even brought this up too, when they arrived at the island, the first thing you see come out of the plane was a stripped down Arnold Schwarzenegger, who was only in his trunks. And I was like, wait, why did he need to be like this already? Could he have not changed when he got on the island? Why did he need to be showing off this much of his body, just leading up to that point? Again, very absurd stuff. And I'm pretty sure it was intentional, but I guess things like that I could have do without, but I guess they're just trying to show off how manly of a man Arnold Schwarzenegger was. Oh, and him carrying around all those weapons as well. It's like, this dude must be like ripped or extremely strong to have carried not only like 3 or 4 heavy guns on him with all these accessories, but he was carrying around a rocket launcher as well. And I was thinking to myself, there's no way he could be moving that quickly with all that gear on. Let alone when they were loading up the equipment from the weapon shop. And when Cindy was handed the rocket launcher, I thought like there should have been some resistance on her. Like she should have like maybe like dropped the rocket launcher or something because it was so heavy. But she didn't. She carried it with ease. I was like, okay. And then when she shot down the police officer's vehicle that was detaining Matrix, to me that was one of the most hilarious scenes to me as a kid when Cindy shot the rocket launcher in the wrong direction. But then when I saw it again though for this review, I find it ironic because when Matrix asked Cindy how she knew how to use this weapon, and she was like, "Oh, I read the instruction." First of all, my thought was, when did you have time to read this instruction? And B, if you did read the instruction, why did you fire it in the wrong direction in the first place? So, again, very absurd stuff. What else? I mean, I could go on with several more, but I think the one thing, though, that I think I can say this movie did for me was, and I know a lot of people aren't fans of it. Sal mentioned the one-liners, like the puns in this film. I know a lot of people, they cringe when they hear puns, but for me, I love puns. Particularly when they're bad. I treat bad films as being like good material, like good comedic material. And I think if I were to trace where my love for puns came from, it could possibly be traced back to this film because there were so many of these in here. Sal already mentioned a couple. I mean, I'm going to mention a couple more. Yeah, so in the final confrontation scene between Matrix and Bennett, where Matrix ended up killing Bennett by piercing him with a pole. Like some steam was coming out of the pole and afterwards. And so Matrix said the line, "Oh, you should let out some steam, Bennett." That was just one of those one-liners or puns that, I mean, even after rewatching it made me laugh. So yeah, puns just get to me. What else? This one, the one where when Matrix got on the plane with one of the guys who was keeping an eye on him, and then the flight attendant asked Matrix, "Oh, no carry on?" And then Matrix calmly just replied, "Oh, no, just him." I didn't know what he was referring to initially, but when I saw what happened afterwards, it's like, oh yeah, I understand now. So, things like that. And I think, yeah, like I said, maybe this is the film that got me to appreciate what puns and how I just came to appreciate them in terms of them being either a comedic relief or being clever in whatever scene or situation you may be. I incorporate a lot of puns in my daily life. If anything else, if there's one takeaway from this film, I think that's that for me, is that I came to appreciate puns.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. This movie had a bunch of one-liners. Going down the list again, like when they were in the plane and he kills the guy that he's on the plane with, and he tells the stewardess as he's going to leave, he's like, "Don't bother my friend, please. He's dead tired." That made me chuckle, which is like, to me, to have Arnold say something like that is just really, like, it brings it to a higher level. Also, when Sydney asks him, "What happened to Sully?" and Matrix says, "I let him go," after, letting him go off the cliff, that was another one-liner that made me chuckle. So with this, I'm going to ask you, from all this movie, can you come up with one or two liners that you really enjoyed and you keep referring to them even now? Oh, and also let's give it our final grade.
I mean, I already mentioned a couple. I really love the Bennett one at the end. "You should let us some steam, Bennett." That was one of my favorites. I mean, because the whole shopping thing was such a memorable scene for me where they went to go pick up their weapons or whatnot. The scene that led up to that, after they found out where they were holding Matrix's daughter at on the island, and before they left for the island, where Sydney was like, "Oh, so we're gonna go there," and then Matrix was like, "Oh no, not yet. We need to go somewhere first." And then she was like, "Where?" And then of course Matrix calmly replies, "Shopping." So I think it's one of those films where you have to have had the right actor or actress give these one-liners for you to accept them, first of all, or for them to get away with it. And I think Arnold Schwarzenegger is one of those actors. So in terms of my grade, like I said, Sal pointed out a lot of mistakes that the film had. So from a production perspective, I'll have to dock it some points. But everything else, like I said, I treat it as an over-the-top action film. So because of that, I still enjoyed it. So I would say overall my score of the film is going to be a 6 out of 10.
Okay, I'm going to start off with one of the lines that I really liked. This takes place in the hotel room when Matrix is fighting Cook and Cindy's hiding. Cook says, "You scared, motherfucker? Well, you should be, because this Green Beret is going to kick your big ass." Then Matrix replies, "I eat Green Berets for breakfast, and right now I am very hungry." Which Sydney replies to, "I can't believe this macho bullshit." To me, that wraps up the whole movie in one line. Like, there's cheesy lines which are amazingly delivered by Arnold. He doesn't see them as funny. Like, I guess he's acting, so it's like, to him it's just another line, but to us it's like it's Arnold saying something funny, but he doesn't seem to know it's funny. That makes it even better. And Sydney just wraps up what we're all thinking. I can't take all this macho bullshit. So that makes this movie good. To me, it adds some points, but the other things I said deduct some points, and I think I give it the same grade as Touly. 6 out of 10. I can pop this movie any day and just have it playing and just enjoy the one-liners, other than the errors that we talked about. This is an 80s movie, so it can get away with that. So I guess this does it for our review of Commando. Please join us next time when we're going to review Dead Men Don't Wear Plaid. Social media is down in the description. And remember, keep watching movies.